Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks on the block. At the 5. At the 2. At the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread!
I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid, what's going on, everybody? Wednesday here, coming off another tough loss for our Detroit Lions in Chicago, division rival, but there's plenty to talk about because I woke up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, I was up earlier, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm getting hyped for this game, thinking, man, it's a game we can get against Chicago. Like, get this dub, we'd be back with some steaks heading into Turkey Day, and sure enough, I see it pop up on the bottom line. Matt Stafford out. And I just had to mute everything else I was doing and say, what the heck is going on? Like, I mean, straight up Grifka style. I mean, get the soundbite out. I gotta have it here somewhere. I was just like, Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia, like, you're sitting our quarterback down after he's played hundreds of games in a row?
What the hell are you doing?
I mean, I was real frustrated when I saw that, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the game, some other things off the top. Grifka, I know you're there on the other end. Grifka, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, just it's one of those things that the light at the end of the tunnel is looking pretty bleak right here. But, we'll get our picks and shovels out and keep digging.
Got to get that pad level down. Our will is outstanding here on the podcast. And, let's just talk about some things off the top. So we got into it a few weeks ago about these running backs. Again, I know you had some high hopes, and obviously the Lions do too on Ty Johnson. He's done now with concussion, which you know how those go. Could be back in a week or two, but also they can linger. It left us with J.D. McKissic and Paul Perkins. Grifka, I'm so frustrated by my guy Bob Quinn just sort of standing pat, sitting around with these running backs. I mean, the Lions have had bad running backs for a long time now, but this, to me, is the worst combo ever. And J.D. McKissic makes a few plays, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to go into football games with him as my lead back. Then you're dropping down to Paul Perkins, again, another guy I think I like as maybe my fourth, running back where he can do a couple things. But the fact that they went into this game with those three and then quickly lost Ty Johnson, to me, is just an embarrassment when it comes to NFL football. There's no way any other team would find this acceptable.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really hard to explain to get any hope for a game. Like you said, you woke up and you're thinking to yourself, okay, we need this game. Team's gonna be should be all stoked to play it. And then you hear Stafford goes down. It's like, great. What are they gonna do? They got Driscoll. The guy was I think 1-4. And starts for Cincinnati last year. And, it's like, okay, they're going to lean a little more heavier on the run this, try to take a little pressure off him. Ty Johnson gets hurt early. And I'm not even quite sure what play he, where he got injured, because there wasn't one where he was down, where they kind of had to stop the game, So it must have been one of those things where, the eye in the sky saw and said, hey, you got to check this guy. And they took him right to the locker room. And then after that, it was like, yeah, they're trying to run through up the middle with McKissic, and Perkins is, getting his shot here and there. But it was just once that happened, it's just at that point, all the air was let out of the balloon. You're playing with a backup QB. You're down to, like you said, your fourth, fifth running backs, and neither one of those guys are putting the fear in anybody. So it's just pretty disheartening.
Yeah, they picked up my guy Bo Scarborough, who I tweeted out literally probably an hour or two before they signed him. I was like, can we just go get Bo Scarborough? We had talked about him on the show. He's young, he's big, he's fast, he's got some upside. Sure enough, they signed him, and then of course all the Lions GMs and everybody out there, I don't think he has anything. He's this, he's that. I'm like, he's something. He's something. He's a body. He's something other than what we have. So, I mean, I hope they could get him up to speed and just run him out there against Dallas, who he's actually picked up, I think, as an undrafted free agent or in the 7th round, whatever it was in the draft. Run him out there against Dallas and give him a football and see what he can do, because, I mean, the fact that they just are sitting there going, oh, we'll scheme up a few runs, or like you say, the minute they started running J.D. McKissick straight into the defense, right in the middle, like he's some big power back, I was like, this makes no sense. Like, you know, if you're going to have those two, scheme up some trick plays, some runs to the edge, something, rather than, you know, putting J.D. McKissick like he's a between the tackles guy. It's just so frustrating to me. But like I say, they don't really have any options. They weren't able to get a trade done, and here we are just sitting there going, okay, now we have no QB, which that was our only way to move the football and score points. Our defense, yeah, they played a bit better in the Chicago game, but overall they still just can't get off the field when they need to, can't make turnovers, which to me is the biggest thing. Like, you can't turn the football over. You know, you're not going to be a good defense. As simple as that, really, when you boil it all down. So real frustrated by the running back situation. We've talked about it for a couple weeks now. Grifka, I'll turn it to a happier note, at least for me, probably not for you here. Did you happen to see the top graded Lion by PFF this week, Grifka?
No. No.
Okay, well, to enlighten you, it's a guy named Jared Davis. He had an 81.5 PFF grade, the tops on the team. I also wanted to bring it to your attention that Taylor Decker has been the top left tackle in football for 2 weeks now, with a really good pass grade, a little bit lower on his run rating, but, you know, top left tackle in the game. Like, I mean, the PFF scores aren't everything. I know you hate both these players. To me, it's just a show, again, that as much as we might see on the film or on the game when we're watching it, a missed tackle here or there, or a frustrating moment, the fact that these guys are grading out with those type of scores shows me that, you know, they do have some ability, and the Lions probably see this as well as, you know, watch the tape and know a lot more than we do, and think that, you know, every fan wants to just boot both these players, but they're both young, they're both at key positions, and if you don't have any better replacements, to me, these grades show that they can get it done. I think the Lions had minimal sacks with Driscoll back there, so, you know, as much as you hate our O-line, just bringing those up too, that, you know, they've been decent, I would say, if not better than decent, and Jared Davis, as much as he might swing and miss, as he does, you know, make some plays, and hopefully they'll just continue to use him in different ways. And Jelani Tavai was the second graded player this week as well. So I just thought I'd not only bring that to your attention, but on a positive note, seeing those type of grades are good things, I think, for those players.
Okay. I mean, okay. That's a small sample size. I mean, considering at one point, you know, PFF had, I think last week, had Jared Davis rated as the worst linebacker that, you know, was playing, you know, so he had one good week. Okay. Taylor Decker, once again. Okay. So he's had a couple weeks. I mean, he's still a very average left tackle. And, you know, okay, Jelani Tavai, still a rookie. There's points where he looks lost out there. Okay. I mean, I'll cut that guy a little more slack simply because he is a rookie and he's, you know, transitioning. But, okay. I mean, that's positives. I guess that's a small note you could take. But, you know, as opposed to, like you said, 1 week where Jared Davis is rated as the highest, and he's had pretty much the rest of the season where PFF is like, yeah, he sucks. So, okay. I mean, he had a good week. And, they still lost to a guy who had, 2 touchdown passes over the last 4 games and had 3 against these guys. Oh, okay. No problem.
Grifka, I'm too tired to hit the bell about 8 times for the okays and for the he sucks and all the other catchphrases you did there. Grifka, like, let me just ask you this without getting in a big argument, because I obviously could right now if I had more energy or even wanted to, but do you want these players to do well? Because, like, when I read off a good game, like, okay, you can say, well, I got all this other stuff that shows they've been bad. when they have a good game or when they maybe are playing better or it's sinking in or they're starting to maybe, I don't know, could you ever imagine that maybe one or two of these players are turning a corner to be better and to be a helpful piece on this team? Do you even want that, or do you just want them to suck so that you can say, not only was I right, but yeah, they're just not good football players? Because I feel like you don't even really want them to be good.
Well,
it frustrates me.
There's points where guys are what they are, and Taylor Decker is what he is at this point. You know what he's going to be. He's an average left tackle. He's not going to turn into a stalwart left tackle. So, yeah. Do I want him to be good? Yeah, but is he ever going to be? No. He's shown enough. There's enough tape on him to realize he'll never be that. And Jared Davis, I mean, fine. He's in, his third year or whatever. I mean, the guy still takes poor angles. The guy still has trouble covering. And so there's a point where, and he's playing middle linebacker. That's not even I don't know. I don't even know if that's the right position for the guy. It's just one of those things. Middle linebackers are read, react linebackers. That's what they do. That's what all the greats always did. They read and react quickly. He has trouble doing that. He's a point and shoot linebacker. He's more of an Ernie Sims linebacker, and Ernie Sims was a weak outside linebacker for this team. He's point and shoot. It's like run at him, go tackle him. That's what Jared Davis does, and he doesn't even do that very well. He still takes poor angles. He still misses a lot of tackles. It's his third year. I mean, he's a linebacker. He should at least be able to tackle, make good angles, but he doesn't do that. You're not improving on that. You can improve your coverage skills, improve reading it. But when you see the handoff and you go to it and you completely take the wrong angle, you are what you are. You don't improve on that. You don't all of a sudden just oh yeah, okay, I took this one. So do I want them to be good? Yeah, they are what they are at this point. I mean, they are what they are. So.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you don't see these guys can't get better. You're basically, your opinion of both players is after this year, might as well not only dump them, but go get somebody else off the scrap heap because they'd be better than Jared Davis right now as a linebacker. Basically anybody be better, because my quick opinion is that okay, these guys aren't lockdowns at either spot, but I bet if we really broke down, some of the different numbers, they're not as bad as you make them sound every week. Secondly, there's not readily a place replacements at left tackle. Oh, we'll just go, grab this guy off the bowling alley and put him in. So they're as best as you have right now. And if you just get rid of him and go draft another guy, you think he's going to be incredible day one? I mean, most of the time, then you're restarting the clock at that position. So I would much be more in the mold of trying to move Jared Davis around, because you bring up his coverage every week. You bring up his bad tackling. You rarely mention that the guy gets home on a lot of blitzes. He's also a thumper when he does hit you. He's probably the hardest worker on the team. So he's got those three things going for him, in my opinion, to balance out a lot of the negatives. I think you just keep rolling with these guys, because there's a lot worse players I could think in the middle or the outside, in my opinion, than the number 40 for the Detroit Lions. And same with left tackle. PFF's grading him well. To me, I'm not wowed by Taylor Decker, and I'm frustrated when he gets a penalty or when he gets beat, but there's plenty of weeks where I don't notice him one bit, and that's a good thing. And same with the rest of the offensive line. Yeah, there's times where everybody and their brother can say, man, Rick Wagner is just a turnstile. But there's multiple games in a row where you won't even remember that Rick Wagner plays right tackle, because he's doing what he needs to do. He's keeping everybody off the quarterback, and he's doing, again, we're still not running the football, and that goes on those guys. And Jared Davis is not turning this into a top 10 defense. We all know that. But my backspin is that, not only do they bring good things to the table, but there's plenty of times where they're not costing us football games, and they're much better than the alternatives. Or the minute you get rid of Jared Davis and put another linebacker, it's just a swap for nothing. Whereas if you can coach him up, get Jared Davis better, even if he's not your captain of your defense, the guy in the middle, hey, okay, he's either a starting outside, or maybe he's even a fringe player that you're bringing in on the third down blitzes. Maybe you're doing other things with him. He doesn't have to be a world beater just because you took him number 20 in the first round. That's my counter.
Okay. Okay. I mean, generally, you want your first round guys to be like you said, your world beaters. You're not going to settle for some average player. That's not what you drafted him for, to just be an average player. That's not what you did. And to live
But we're
under the
3 years
guy,
down the road, and he's not.
what we
So,
have,
go ahead.
so go with the devil. Doesn't make any sense to me when a team that's all they've done. I mean, you want to talk about each team's different, but it seems like the Lions, they will settle for, well, this is what we got. Let's just roll. Well, who's really better out there? You're right. Who is really better out there? We talked before how they don't make any big splash trades when stuff is needed. You talked about how they sat still on a running back, and then afterwards, after a team does make a big splash, it's like, well, they gave up too much. Fitzpatrick is having a great, he's really helped that Pittsburgh defense turn around. They're back in the playoff hunt. Who thought that with Mason Rudolph? It's just, sometimes teams do that. They make big plays, turn around. The Bears, yeah, they might be crap again this year, but that has nothing to do with Khalil Mack. It's because they put their bags in the basket of a crappy quarterback who just went out and threw 3 touchdowns against our crappy defense. So just to sit there and say, like, it's the devil, we know, we should live with them. They could coach him up. Like I said, Taylor Decker's been in the league long enough. There's enough tape on him. He's not becoming Orlando Pace all of a sudden. And Jared Davis, I think the guy's just a big miss. I mean, there's guys you hear, they turn around really quick. Boom, they're like that. But he just, like I said, he still takes poor angles. He still can't cover. And that's all mental. That's mental. Maybe the pro game is just a little too fast for him.
Okay, and we could play volleyball back and forth all day, but I just want to end it on that, like, when it comes to, like, the reason I love the draft so much is because, like, everybody that kind of watches the draft as a fringe person thinks that, in the first round, you just are, if you don't get a stud, like, we got huge issues. Like, back in the day when you were drafting and paying Ndamukong Suh like $50 million guaranteed with the number 2 pick as a defensive tackle, yeah. If you missed in that era, you were in big trouble. Nowadays, the money isn't the issue. And I was just doing some work today on, like, kind of what not only the percentage hit rate is, but kind of how random this stuff is. And there's plenty of players that are taken from 10 all the way down that are supposed to be just stalwarts, and they end up not. But it also doesn't always mean that they got to just get rid of them, get a new guy in there. There's been plenty of stories where guys, maybe they, instead of your top guy, they fall in as a really nice contributor, which is still good. Now, of course, you're throwing out Orlando Pace, the best in the game. I mean, when you find those guys in the top 10 or even in the lower part of the round, that's a huge bonus. Everybody had higher hopes for Jared Davis and probably for Taylor Decker, but I'm just telling you that unless you have a really better solution and get this out of your head that, if we take somebody in the first round, they better be here for a decade and be Pro Bowl top end quality. It just doesn't happen that way in the draft, but the Lions need to get more quality instead of, guys they're pitching out after 2 years or they don't even make their first contract. That I agree with, but there's just levels to all this. And I feel like everybody's jumping on Jared Davis and for his faults, but I'm sitting here going, he's a 3rd-year guy that's a physical specimen and that has a lot of decent traits. He just needs to sort of slot in wherever he may be, which isn't, as you would put it, a Ray Lewis middle linebacker that probably everybody in best case scenario hoped for. And same with Decker. I feel like, yeah, he's never going to be, the Joe Thomas of the world, but there's plenty of left tackles. I have no idea who they are. I have no idea if they were taken at 20 or at 3rd, 4th round. And they're plenty serviceable in the NFL. And I think more than not, he's serviceable. So that's where I'm bringing it up, is they're grading decent. They're still both in their 3rd, 4th years. They're pretty good when it comes to measurables and all the different things. So even if they're not going to be Pro Bowl anchors, they could still be good on a team like the Lions, who's building in other areas, as well as having that young core that needs to turn the corner. But I don't think I would throw them out with the bathwater and just say, well, I'm going to take another left tackle and with my top 10 pick this year. Well, did you really help your football team? You just got marginally better at a spot instead of adding to, or putting another strength, rather than saying we got rid of a mid-level left tackle and now we have a good or great left tackle. Okay, that'd be nice to have, but it'd be nice to have a good, serviceable, or better than average left tackle and add a defensive end or add a corner, another lockdown corner. So again, that's my other side. I thought we'd just chat about it off the top. Griff, could before we get to the game,
we'll end up doing that one in the off season.
Yeah, I want your quick take on what you thought when you saw that Matt Stafford was out. To me, I've got lots of thoughts on it, but what was your initial reactions? And then before we even get to the game, just sort of like it was very odd to me for so many reasons.
Okay, yeah, like you said, I was when I first saw it, I was expecting. I do this every Sunday morning before coming home watching the Lions. I go to the gym. It's one of those things. I get my workout in. Get my mind right. I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm there. And as I'm working out, like my phone, a text comes through. My buddies just says Stafford's out, and I'm just like text back what question mark, because that's like one of those things that, like, you never expect to see. And he's just like broken back is what it said. And at that point, and he sent me the line, the Adam Schefter tweet or whatever. And so at that point, I'm just like, I finished the workout. And at that point, all I could think was just like, man, it's like, I didn't even know who the backup was. It was one of those things. It's just like, who was the backup? And then, you read Driscoll starting, and it's like, I remember him with Cincinnati. And I had to look up, and they said, I know they said in the game a couple times that he was 1-4. It was just like, all the hope was kind of gone. I'm just like, gosh, because you figure it's just like, if he's back up, and it's just, because even during the week, I was reading things like, Stafford was like limited in practice, doing enough, didn't do a whole lot. And like, but that just generally happens with teams. They'll ease off, during practice, during the middle of the season for their play. So, I really kind of thought nothing of it, thinking that he would be out there anyways. But like once Driscoll, I was just like, gosh, it was a game they really needed. And really, I watched it with it. I watched it just to watch it. I wasn't expecting them to win, and it's hard going into a game when, to get hyped about it when it just seems like there's no hope. Like you said, Carrion was out. Our backup was in. It was just at that point, it was kind of difficult to watch. It just seemed like it was one of those things. Like the coaches before the game was like, just don't turn the ball over, and we'll be okay. We'll do this. Well, you just don't lose it for us, and we'll figure out a way to win. One of those pep talks. But I don't know. It was very disheartening and very disappointing. And I understand, hey, it's Stafford. He's got family. You want the guy to be able to walk when he's done with his career, and I understand that. But it was just, as a Lions fan, you're just like, gosh, what else could go wrong with this team?
Yep, I did hear your answer there, Griffka. I really did. But the one thing I kept in my brain during your whole answer, that you can't say on this show that a buddy texted you. You know what the people want, or what you refer to that as. Come on, give it to him.
Yeah, he pinged me, man.
The whole time I was just going, I can't believe Griffka didn't say you pinged him twice. That would have been classic. So we got to get that in. But I'll save my thoughts, actually, because I may do either a bonus show, or I've got some conspiracy theories. I've got some things I want to say about it. But my real basic was,
you better play the conspiracy music if you got conspiracy theories, man.
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, I think I'm going to save it. I want to get my thoughts all together on it. But there's lots of stuff, lots of either both shady business or just craziness going on with this that I think the people will want to hear. And I don't know, man. Don't know what to think about it across the board, but I've got thoughts. I've got Griffka conspiracies. I've got all types of takes on this. But my initial reaction was I just couldn't believe what I was seeing on my screen, because, this was not on my radar at all. It wasn't something of he was iffy. It wasn't the guys played so well. And then just to see not even like, oh, he's questionable, or, oh, he might be on the sideline, but we're not sure if he can go. Just straight up, he's out. Was crazy. So, like I say, I'll save some of that. But let's go ahead and get into this review, Griffka. We got to talk about this game. It was a division game. It was in Chicago against the sputtering Chicago Bears. I mean, a team that we talked about leading up to the game that was,
struggling.
A team that we definitely reached out to our boy. Oh my goodness, Denny Green. I mean, he had plenty to say about the Chicago Bears.
They are who we thought they were.
And they basically proved that on Sunday.
They are who we thought they were.
And we still couldn't get it done in the end. But we'll talk all about it. We'll take a quick break for our sponsors. We'll be right back. Everybody, we're back in the house. We had some spirited discussions to start the show about running backs, the frustration there, as well as Jared Davis, Taylor Decker, two of the hot button items on this show. Here we are to talk about the Bears game. Driscoll starting for the Lions. Most Lions fans had the Grifka take, which was kind of like, no chance we can win this. What do the Lions do? They come out the gate. Driscoll looks really great on the first drive, takes a ton of time off the clock. The Lions actually end up getting 2 field goals to make it 6-0 before you could blink there in the first quarter. And then all Lions fans are thinking, hey, we still got a shot with this guy as it's 6-zip. And it was basically 6-zip until the last drive of the second quarter. And that's when we somehow let Mitch, which is a dog's name, Trubisky get going and throw it around and throw a touchdown to a guy. I just remember him going, who the hell is that? It's like, who is, and then he said his name and I was like, who? Like some no-name garbage player caught a touchdown to end the half with like 20 seconds left to make us all feel like, oh my gosh, here we would have went in the locker room 6-0. Mitch Trubisky was doing absolutely nothing. I mean, the guy was
It's garbage.
Absolute garbage.
It's garbage. It's garbage.
And here he goes, he throws a touchdown, and then we're losing at half, which to me is always annoying, and they get the football. Grifka, what did you think of this first quarter, how we got off, as well as what happened to kind of end the half?
Like you said, first drive, took them down for like the field goal. I'm like, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. And then, they got that other field goal, but it seemed like they got really conservative even when the Lions had really good field position in that first half, where they were like, I think they were at their 40 one time, and at the 50, even on the Bears side of the field, one point they're in the second quarter, and that one drive they were on the Bears side of the field, and they went back 20 yards after a couple penalties, and I think they had a 3rd and 30 at one point on that same thing. It was just, they just got really conservative on those play calls, and I understand Driscoll didn't get a lot of snaps, but it was situations like that where surprise somebody. I mean, go down the field, like they did late in the game, which you'll talk about here in a little bit. But they didn't do any of that, and that was just you just kind of threw away great field position, and you just wanted to put in the hands of like your defense, like just don't turn the ball over and we'll be okay. And that's just, I don't know. It's just when they were up 6-0, I just thought they left some points on the field there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that in previous weeks. Like, you can always go back to like, oh, we should have got touchdowns. We should have been more aggressive. Like, I felt like 6-0 was fine because, you had at least not only scored those points, which anytime you can sort of get up on a road game, that's a positive. And they came back and were playing good D, which was shutting down Trubisky, which we all kind of expected. They weren't letting Montgomery do anything. No gadget plays to Cohen. And, for the most part, just playing like really solid football. It was only to that late drive where they got it going, like I said. And to me, that's the most demoralizing part of this game. It's like, I can only imagine how this game goes if they run into the locker room, they get booed off the field by Chicago Bears fans, which they were booing them after the first, 3 and out or whatever. Imagine what they would have done if they go into the locker room where he has like, again, 20 yards passing, no points, Lions are up 6-zip. It would have been a totally different vibe, but then you give up not only the touchdown, it was like bing, bam, boom down the field, and then a touchdown to some nobody, and they're dancing in the aisles. And to me, that was such a momentum swing, as well as then you remember, oh, damn, and they get the ball after the half. Like, had they held them to nothing, I think this is a different football game. Man, I was still doing my normal, hey, it's only 7-6, type of deal, but I was really frustrated by that late touchdown. I thought it was brutal. And then the other thing that ended this game, in my opinion, was you let them come right out of the locker room, get a touchdown. Then Jeff Driscoll throws the ball directly, as The Rock would say. He threw it directly to the Chicago Bears player, and then they have a short field and they score again. I mean, to me, that 3 touchdowns within, probably even like, a total of maybe 5 minutes of clock time was somewhat of a death nail, in my opinion. It was just, you can't let that happen.
Well, I think it was the first drive of the second half where the Bears went down and scored. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it was on the penalty one, or not penalty one, or after the interception one. The Slay got that real ticky-tack pass interference. I mean, even the announcers like, well, yeah, there was a little arm tug there. It's just like, man, that's just hand fighting right there. I mean, come on. And not to mention, like, even, what was it? I think it was Robinson. He pushed off a little bit on that. So once again, not looking to blame the refs, but that was a third down play. I mean, right there. I mean, it would have stopped them, and I don't even think they were in field goal range at that point. But it was a 3rd and 1, and Trubisky threw it way down the field, and it would have been, if it wasn't complete, it would have been a really long field goal attempt for their crappy kicker, and they gave him a pass interference call, just and Slay's my boy, and he's still what was that call? But even when the announcer was well, there's a little tug there, that was it. Come on. I mean, really? I mean, they're both hand fighting all the way down the field. I mean, it was a pretty cheap penalty right there. That didn't help.
Griffith, these NFL refs, I just hope they go home to themselves every night. They got to be saying this when they're really honest with themselves.
It was a bad decision, period, point blank. It was one of the dumbest decisions I ever made.
There's literally not a third down play where I don't wait a good 20, 30 seconds before I get excited, because is there a flag? I'll literally be at home and go, I'll wait, and I'll go, all right, no flags. Okay, we're good. Because that's what it's come down to in the NFL. Not only do these flags come out, randomly on ticky-tack, especially in the Lions games, so that's what we focus on and what we watch, literally plays will end. The play is over. The ball's been hit the ground. It's sort of done. And then these flags come out. It's almost like they're waiting, back in the day. And again, we bring up an NBA analogy, when Jordan would shoot it and they would almost wait to see all right, if he makes it, we're just going to let the highlight go. But if he misses, we're going to give him that hit to the wrist. That's what it feels like in the NFL to me now. It's kind of oh, wait, hold on. Let's make sure if Aaron Rodgers makes a play, we'll let it go. But if he doesn't, we'll bail him out with a flag. I mean, I don't think this game was on the refs either, but there's been many instances of that. I remember this happening in this game where it was sort of after the fact, ticky-tack, third down, bailing teams out. If you're an NFL ref, you have to have common sense to be okay, on 3rd and 1, it better be egregious for me to call it, not these, hand on the guy's hip while the other guy's pushing off too, and we give the offense the free play and the free new set of downs. That's a big swing in a game. I agree with you that that was rough, as well as ticky-tack, and as well as we've seen too much of it this year. It just continues to happen. There's a Kenny Golladay play I want to hit on in the 4th quarter that was ridiculous too, and it's just that really didn't even take points off the board or anything, but it's just another big play at a big spot in the game. It's just a totally blown call. So before we talk about that, Griff, go ahead.
Like I said, I'm not looking to pin this on the refs. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, the team was just overmatched with what the Lions actually had on the field that game. But
hold on though, real quick counterpoint.
We've seen it before where guys' face masks are pulled, or not even pulled, but their head jerks around a little bit, and here comes the flag. I mean, it happened twice on the Lions. I mean, there was one point, I believe it was McKissick was getting tackled, and it's blatant where the guy just grabs his face mask and turns his head, and they're even the announcer was how'd the refs miss that? And then one time, it happened again, right in front of the referees. There was it wasn't even in a pile, and it happened again, and they're how did they miss that? And it's just, we've seen less egregious calls, made on face masks where a guy's finger barely touches it, and they call it, and it's just, it's stuff that leads me to believe the conspiracy theory against the Lions, the NFL don't give a crap about the Lions. I mean, it's just whatever, this game is, the refs are like, fine, this, let's get this game over with. It's between a couple mediocre to below average teams. Let's just get this game over with. So, I don't know.
Griff, I have a counterpoint. Do you want to say, though, maybe who they would want to give calls to when they're talking about these conspiracy theories you mentioned?
Green Bay being one of them, the Patriots being another one. Talk about it on Friday with Chuck, and they're about a bad call one time. I have that. Yeah, just those teams always get calls.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I wanted to jump in on you, though. You didn't let me, like you normally don't on the show. But I needed to jump in when you said we were outmatched, because we weren't outmatched. We were winning the game early. We gave up a couple touchdowns. Here we are trying to not only prevent those, which some of these calls would have, but this is another game that ends up coming down, thanks to this next play that I want to mention. Jeff Driscoll, when everybody's basically turned off their TV and they're going to the local park or doing grocery shopping, he throws a 47-yard touchdown, I believe it was, to Kenny Galladay. We're right back in the football game with a really good chance to win. So this was not like a beat down, end by the third quarter. This came down not only to the final drive, but the final play again. So you can't write it off as like, oh, we were outmatched, we were getting whooped. A few of these calls could have swung this game. And there's been many a times where we say that, like, okay, you don't want to blame the refs, but when games are coming down to the final drive, the final couple snaps, and you're just having to go back and look at some of these plays that were missed, it does come down to issues there. So I don't want you to sell this as like not only do we have like no running backs, no quarterback, defense still that didn't, shut them down. I mean, this is a road divisional game that we had a chance to win at the end, if not tie, so I thought the Kenny touchdown was nice. I really loved, got outside the pocket. Of course, the Bears were crying for a holding or whatever they wanted on this call, just because these guys now are taught to just collapse when anybody has their hands on their shoulder pads. They just try to fall down as hard as possible. So they'll get a holding call. Driscoll got outside the pocket, chucked this ball up, and then Kenny just does what he does and snatched it out of the air for a touchdown. I loved it.
Yeah, that was it was a great play, and it was probably the bright spot that Kenny had that game. I mean, considering he didn't have that great a game, considering what he's done in past weeks for this team.
So his game was not that.
It wasn't that great.
I see. That's my other thing. Is like now that Kenny Galladay is putting up some big numbers, leading the league in touchdowns. How often do we have to see that? Even the best receivers in the game, like if Hopkins goes for 2-3 weeks where he's balling out, I expect him to have a down week because defenses are going to focus on him because you just can't consistently put up like 100 and a touch like all day, every day. So like I was totally cool with not only him not having a big game per se, but making a play like this, which got us right back in the football game. Like I think that's the kind of expectations people have to have for Kenny Galladay is that, yeah, he's not going to come out and have 120 and 2 TDs every week, but he might have 101, and then he might drop down to like 60, and then he might have a game that's, I don't know, not that great, but then he might come back and have a dominant game where he's an absolute beast. So, we can't fall in that trap of thinking this guy's going to just ball out every game, but he continues to get the end zone. He continues to, get these 50-50 balls, and that bodes well, as well as they like to spread it out, as we know. So sure enough, the Lions get that touchdown. The play I want to hint on is something that Eric Schlitt of USA Today Lions Wire brought up to me. And he kind of had this thing on Twitter about like, how is this not called? And it was Kenny Galladay coming off the line and basically just running like kind of a slant route and getting like bumped off by the linebacker like 6 yards downfield or whatever, just kind of crushed him, and then he kept going. And like it didn't even register to me. I just wrote Eric back and I'm like, yeah, they're not going to make that call unless they call an OPI on Kenny or whatever, which would be garbage. And he's like, no, that was the OPI on Kenny. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that call. They had called like some random offensive pass interference on Kenny Galladay, but either they didn't show the replay or I just missed it because I was so frustrated or, was in the other room, whatever was going on. And when he showed it to me, I'm like, they called that? Like, if anything, it was the linebacker that initiated the contact. He was, like I said, 6 yards downfield. It had nothing to do with the play. This was like, slot middle of the field, and it was a scramble drill where he ended up making time. And remember, he threw it, I think it was to McKissick, actually moved the sticks on this play, and they took it away for this bogus call. I mean, I don't know if you saw that on Twitter, but it was just kind of like, once I saw it, and then people were like telling me, oh yeah, they didn't show the replay. And I'm like, you dang sure they didn't, because that was another egregious, awful, embarrassing call by NFL officials. They should be embarrassed. Yeah. These guys should lose their jobs for stuff like this.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter as well, but it's just one of those things where like you said, it's one of those things where you think the refs are like playing into it and stuff, and like I got in I don't want to say discussion with my buddies about that, because I conspiracy theory. I was just like, I think the NFL carries about 8 teams, and every other team's just cannon fodder. And they're like, well, no, it's a parity is what the NFL likes. And how many times do you see, like, it's a 3rd and long, there'd be a defensive holding to give the team a first down. It's just like, you're right, but that's what they like. And they turn. It just seems to happen like, okay, well, the Bears, they got to get back into it. We like the Bears, so yeah, you're right. That offensive pass interference was just a crap call. Like I said, it's just the Slay call I was talking about. If you watch the replay, the referee goes like incomplete pass. Robinson looks at him, throws his hands out, and says, where's the pass interference? Then he reaches for his flag, like. Come on, man. If it was a pass interference, like where it was down the field, because it wasn't right there. They called it like, well, Robinson took 2 or 3 more steps. Your hand should have been on the flag at that point, not waiting to see if it catches it or not. So it's just junk like that, and, like you said, a couple play here or there, could turn the tables, and we had a chance of, winning this game, even with, our backup quarterback and down to our 4th, running back. But still, it's just... it's plays like that lead me to believe. And I know there's other teams out there. We get the same calls. Green Bay doesn't get that junk call like that. I mean, come on. New England's defense doesn't get junk calls like that called against them. Pittsburgh doesn't get junk calls like that called against them. It's a joke is what it is when it comes to that junk. Where like it happens to the Lions, though. It happens to the Jaguars. It happens to the Cardinals. It happens to those teams. So. And everybody just writes it off as like, well, they're just bad teams. Well,
right.
The other teams do that too. It just those calls don't get made against them.
You got to put the soapbox away, Grifka. We get it.
It's been a few weeks since I dug one out, so
it's another embarrassment by NFL officials. Bottom line, and it continues to happen to our beloved Lions, and it's just super frustrating. But I want to get to this. So, despite the bad calls. Despite being outmatched, as you put it, where I thought this was kind of a grimy game that other than the little dink and dunk touchdowns by Trubisky, which made him look like a world beater, like we're in this game despite being short everywhere. We get the football, we get a few stops, we get the ball back multiple times, put a drive together, come up short, whatever, a 4th down, end up getting the ball back again, coming down the field, make a few plays. We're basically like, I remember watching the game going, we're literally at the 25, with, I think this was with, maybe like under 30 seconds left. And I'm like, we're at the 25. Like, why are we not taking shots to the end zone? Like, why are we not, aggressively trying to win this ball game? And then sure enough, it was like the next play, he threw that little 2-yard crossing route to Kenny where he just got ate up and got tackled right on the spot. And like, that's where I just thought, like, you got yourself in this position, you're down here. Now this is where you start trying to win the game, trying to tie the game, trying to actually give yourself a chance. They didn't take one shot even anywhere near the end zone on this final drive. It's all that dink and dunk, get there, but who cares if you get there if you never actually have the gall to put it in the end zone or draw up something that you can actually throw. I don't know. Here's an idea. Throw another jump ball to 19 and see if he can bail you out and not only catch it, but then maybe you grow some onions and you go for 2 and win this thing or whatever. Like, there was none of that. It was just, okay, here's a methodical drive. Here we are with 30, 45 seconds, decent in range, probably around the 30 or 40. Throw that crosser, and then Kenny puts the ball like 3 yards ahead of where it should have been. We hike it, and then Jeff Driscoll goes Bizarro Orlovsky, and instead of running back out of the end zone, he runs ahead of the sticks and then throws just a garbage ball out of bounds to Danny Amendola. Like, I mean, just crumple up my notes. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's just the end of the game was a frustrating embarrassment because we had a chance, we were in it, and we did nothing to try to take the game.
Yeah,
These are my notes.
I feel that whole rant right there.
You what?
I feel you with that whole rant right there.
So you kind of agree. So Grifka,
my biggest thing on that last drive is like, and I understand, Driscoll, like I said before, Driscoll doesn't get a lot of snaps. And at one point, like they said even the announcer said during the game, the color analyst who said, sometimes just Dan Fouts was the color analyst. He goes, you got to be smart with your read. You know, it's nice that you check down, but still, at that point, even Golladay has to think, I shouldn't catch this when I'm 1 yard off the line of scrimmage with like 12 seconds left or whatever. It's just, when that happened, I'm like, what good does that do? I mean, you're just burning clock, and Golladay caught it in the middle of the field, and he's trying to sprint to the sideline. It's just, dude, at that point, you just need to let it hit your hands and just, bat it to the ground, because it's pretty much a worthless play at that point, because he's not going to turn the corner and take it in from the 22, so that was just a frustrating play for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, part of me was just like saying, how great would this be if we pull this out with Jeff Driscoll? We come from behind after leading, then giving the game away, and then we steal it at the end. It reminded me of the Calvin catch where that game was out of hand too, and then Sean Hill made like 2-3 crazy throws. Next thing you know, we steal a game in Chicago. Oh wait, but then they jobbed us with a bogus call. Grifka, let me hit you with some stats. The Lions, Grifka, had more yards than the Bears. You want to know how much more? 357 to 226. The Lions held Mitch Trubisky. Everybody's talking about his quarterback rating, this, that, and the other. 173 total passing yards. That's a garbage day in the NFL. Okay, you had 3 touchdowns. One was gifted to you. Another one was some nobody. And I'm sure the other one was a dink and dunk too, because I don't even remember. It was just some, Mitch Trubisky type play where he just got fortunate. So we won that battle, even though like people are making a big deal out of him. We won the time of possession. But you know why we didn't win, Grifka? For simple reasons I talk about every week, it seems like, on this show. 0 turnovers. We had 8 penalties for 76 yards. Multiple of those were either questionable or cost us first downs, getting the football back, all this type of stuff. I want to have a game where the Lions win, and you can actually show me the stat sheet where we lose the turnover battle and we have like, a ton of penalties. It does not happen. And this is another example of it. So we win all these categories, but we lose the 2 that I think matters most in a lot of games, turnover and penalties. And we also don't get aggressive at the end of the game where we should have, and stick the ball in the end zone and see what happens. Worst case, you get a penalty. Kenny bails you out. Marvin hadn't done anything. I'm sure you could throw him a jump ball. We don't even give our chance to win the game. Like that's a story to me.
Yeah, it's just, there's so many things that could have, if it just would have went, if the ball just would have hit right and went our way, I don't know. Just like you said, it's just we're just kind of left with air in our hands again. So.
Yeah. All right. You're killing our audience, Grifka. So let's go ahead and do this. On Friday, we put this game in the books. Obviously, like say, if Stafford's down for multiple weeks, we have no running backs. Our defense is still both injured and not where it needs to be. It's hard to have a ton to look forward to with this football team, but it doesn't mean that, when healthy, it's not a good roster. It doesn't mean that, they can't bounce back, even if it is late in this year or 2020. Like, there are things to kind of circle and be excited about. But like I say, it is hard to get going with our current state, our current record. The fact that our highly paid franchise quarterback is not only injured, but he has a lingering back injury, it appears, which is never good. But let's put this in the books. Let's go ahead. We'll get to our Friday show. We're going to have our buddy Chuck on, who's a lifelong Cowboys fan. We'll ask him all types of questions about the Dallas Cowboys, what he likes, what we think the Lions can do against the Cowboys, good, bad, and otherwise, how we see this game going down. So I'm excited for that podcast. And with all that being said, Grifka, time is now. There's only one thing left to do. Do you have anything else for the people?
Nope.
Thank you, everybody. We say it every week. We can't thank you enough for the support. You can shoot messages, talk sports, talk football, talk Lions football with me and Grifka. I'm at Derek Okrie, DEREK, OKRIE. And you can get at Grifka DKC, just like it sounds, on Twitter. And please leave us a quick review on iTunes. That really helps us, as well as just keep drinking that Detroit Kool-Aid. We're going to keep serving it up regardless. Got some ideas, things we're going to try here in the future, as well as, we're just trying to get through. It's been a tough season, not one we expected, but, sometimes that's how the NFL goes. But keep doing this.
Drink it in, man.
We'll keep serving up that crackling Lions cornbread.
Cornbread.
And we'll be back here on Friday, right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Take care, everybody. We're out.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.